Hey, what's up guys? JS Cards here coming at you with a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. But first, I want to say thank you to Thomas and Team Sakurasu for letting me be a guest on their channel today. Thomas did a market watch video for my channel, so if you guys want to check out that video that he made, definitely go do so. Other things that you would find on my channel would be deck profiles, opening videos, discussions about upcoming cards or products. I have a variety of different videos over on my channel and I would appreciate it if you guys went and checked it out. Thanks again to Team Sakurasu for letting me do this guest upload video, and let's jump into the deck profile. So starting off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of Rikka Petal. This is required for the deck. It's like your starter. So during your main phase, you can take 1 Rikka monster from your deck and you can either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. It does lock you into special summoning only plant monsters for the rest of your turn, but every card in here except for your hand traps are plants, so it doesn't really hurt this deck. But the reason this card is so good is because if you control no monsters or all the monsters that you have are plant monsters, you can special summon Rikka Petal from your graveyard. And if you guys didn't know, Rikkas are all about tribute summoning. So the fact that you can get Rikka Petal out from your graveyard every turn is just free tribute fodder, which is great. After that, I play 3 copies of Mudan, the Rikka Fairy. You can tribute 1 plant monster, special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned by the effect of a plant monster, you can add 1 Rikka spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So this card lets you search out your Rikka spells and traps and do some deck thinning that way, which is really nice. It's also a level 6. After that, I played 2 copies of Primula, the Rikka Fairy. If a monster you control is tributed, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can target up to 2 plant monsters you control, increase their levels by 2 until the end of this turn. I also play 1 Cyclamen, the Rikka Fairy. She has a similar effect, except she reduces the level of plant monsters you control by 2. Also, during the end phase, if this card is in your graveyard because it was tributed, you can special summon this card. I really like these 2 level manipulation cards, especially with Mudan, because you can either bump her up to a level 8 to get into your level 8 Exceed monsters, or decrease her to become a level 4. For the last Rikka monster, my favorite one by the way, we have Snowdrop the Rikka Fairy. This is your level 8. You contribute 1 plant monster, special summon both this card and 1 other plant monster from your hand. You can target 1 plant monster you control. All plant monsters you currently control become that monster's level until the end turn. So she can target herself too, so you can make your other monsters level 8, which is insanely good. This is a card I'm currently considering bumping up to 2, but you really just need the 1 copy and space is kind of tight, so we'll have to see and maybe do some more testing. But if you guys want to replace anything with a 2nd copy of Snowdrop, then go for it. And then since this is a plant deck, you'll want to play 3 copies of Lone Fire Blossom. You can tribute 1 face-up plant monster, special summon a plant monster from your deck. So if you don't open up with Rikka Petal, but you do have a Lone Fire Blossom in your hand, you can summon out the Blossom, tribute itself, and then get out a Rikka Petal and go from there. Now moving on to the hand traps, I have 3 copies of Ash Blossom. After that, a card that's been seeing more play lately, 2 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. And for the last of the monsters, I play 3 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma and the 1 Driver. The hand trap lineup, of course, can vary depending on what other types of decks you're playing against and what the meta currently is, that type of thing, but this lineup has been really solid so far. Moving on to the spells, I play 3 copies of Rikka Glamour. First of all, I love the artwork. These secret rares look very nice. So when you activate this card, you can also tribute 1 plant monster and add 1 Rikka monster from your deck to your hand. If you tributed a monster when you activated this card, you can add 1 plant monster with the same original level as that Rikka monster, but a different name from your deck to your hand as well. I also play 1 copy of Flurries because if a Rikka monster you control is tributed, you can make your opponent tribute 1 monster that they control as well. Next up, I play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. We play multiples of every card in the extra deck, so banishing some cards from your extra deck to draw deeper into your deck is definitely okay. Now this card is cheaper than like compared to when it first came out because it did see a few reprints in 2020, but it is still kind of an expensive card. So if you guys want to run other types of draw cards like Upstart, even like Pot of Duality, things like that, you easily could. If you do happen to have 2 or 3 copies of Extrav though, I would definitely recommend testing it out. I play 3 copies of Fury of Kairyushin. This card is awesome. So it lets you add Torrential Tribute from your deck to your hand, and if a water monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So Torrential's been seeing a lot of play lately too, so I thought this would be a great addition to the deck. And even if you were to activate Torrential Tribute and this card's in your graveyard, all of your monsters are going to be protected by it, which is insanely good. For spell and trap card removal, I play 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Moving on to trap cards, I play 2 copies of Rikka Sheet. So with this card, you target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Also, you can tribute a plant monster. Players cannot activate that face-up monster's effects on the field this turn. Then, if you did tribute a monster when you activated this card, you can take control of that monster until the end phase. And then I have the 1 copy of Rikka Tranquility. When you activate this card, you can also tribute 1 plant monster. Special summon 1 Rikka monster from your graveyard in defense position. Then, if you tributed a monster when you activated this card, you can special summon 1 plant monster from your graveyard. This is just another awesome card that lets you get your plants back up onto the field, and then you can tribute them for your effects, overlay, you know, there's a lot of different options, so this is a great card to have. And to round off the main deck, I have 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. So moving on to the extra deck, we have our boss monster here, 3 copies of Teardrop the Rikka Queen. This is the card I go into a lot, and I really think you do need 3 copies because I'm always going into at least 2 copies. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 monster on the field and tribute it. Also, each time a monster is tributed, this card gains 200 attack until the end of this turn. So this card has 2800 attack, but because you are tributing so much, it's usually like a 3000 attack or 3200 attack monster, which is insane. Next up, I play 3 copies of Rikka Queen Strenna. This is another very important card for the deck. It is your rank 4. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 plant monster or Rikka card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. If this card with Exceed material is tributed, you can special summon 1 rank 5 or higher plant Exceed monster from your extra deck or graveyard. So that last effect is really good because I have some plant Exceed monsters that I normally wouldn't be able to play with this deck, but thanks to Strenna, you can just summon them out. Also, I can't think of the name, but there is a new rank 9 plant Exceed monster that's coming out later this year, and I'm definitely going to add a copy or 2 into this deck because Strenna will let us easily bring it out. After that, I play 2 copies of Kanzashi, the Rikka Queen. If a monster is tributed, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 monster in either graveyard and special summon it. Its effects are negated and it becomes a plant monster. Also, if a plant monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can tribute 1 plant monster from your hand or field instead. So that is it for the Rikka monsters that I play in the extra deck. They're all really good, and this ratio has been working out as well. Moving on to the rest of the extra deck, I do play some Sylvan cards, including 2 copies of Alcei and 2 copies of Aurea. Alcei is a rank 8, so you can make it naturally with this deck, but Aurea is a level 7, and you'll have to use Rikka Strenna's effect. I also play 1 copy of Sylvan Princess Sprite. You can detach 1 material from this card, excavate the top card of your deck. If it was a spell or trap card, you can add it to your hand, otherwise send it to the graveyard. You can also send 1 other plant monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard and target 1 of your Sylvan monsters in your graveyard and special summon it. The last Succeed that I play is 1 copy of Fairy Knight. Once per turn, you can detach 2 materials from this card. Return all other cards on the field to the hand. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation, which is insane. And for the last card of the extra deck, we have one synchro, being Psyframe Lord Omega. Now, I usually don't show side decks with my deck profiles just because it all depends on the meta and what decks you play against the most, things like that. But I will just kind of show you a rough one that I threw together just to kind of give you an example of cards that you could play. But definitely change this up as you see fit. But we do have 3 copies of Lancia, 3 copies of Skullmeister. I also like playing the 1 Pancratops in case you're going second. 1 Called by the Grave could also be put in your side deck just to be able to stop a hand trap. 1 Red Reboot as well. Now, because this is a control deck, you could add in more trap cards, including some copies of Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike, or both even. But because this is a water deck, I think a really funny tech option, and it's actually really good, is the Spiritual Water Art card. So you contribute 1 monster, look at your opponent's hand, and send 1 card from their hand to the graveyard. So not only is this good because you tribute a water monster, and that's what this deck is all about, tributing monsters, but you can look at your opponent's hand, that way you have hand knowledge, and you can get rid of any card you want. I just think this is a really cool card, and it's a funny tech card to include, at least in the side deck. So there you guys have it, that is my Rikka deck profile. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. Thanks again to Team Sakurasu for letting me be on the channel today. And if you guys end up visiting my channel or subscribing, definitely let me know if it was because of Team Sakurasu. I'd love to know. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.